is going on here?
If I'm going to be completely honest here, The Evil Within 2 was slightly disappointing to me as someone who loved the original. But if I'm going to be even more honest, I could not stop playing The Evil Within 2. The loop of upgrading and scouring the open environments for resources helped me overlook the game's nonsensical anemic story, occasional control hiccups, and lack of good original scares. Drastically swerving away from its predecessor may have sanded off some of the unique charm from the first game that I grew to love, but The Evil Within 2 still managed to be an interesting third-person horror shooter worthy of playing. Quiet and barely noticed would both describe Bethesda's marketing push for Dishonored: Death of the Outsider, along with my favorite way to play this new entry in one of my favorite series. Death of the Outsider was a worthy budget-price follow-up to Dishonored 2, aping the choose-your-own-approach gameplay and interesting world from the first two games and putting them into a shorter, more palatable package. Trimming down Dishonored to its essentials worked quite well and showed how good the core of the series was. Even though it was an odd choice to end the franchise on an abbreviated note, it was still one of the best games of 2017. It took me just about 8 months to beat Resident Evil 7. My progress often stalled because I was too spooked to take one more step in that moss-stained hellhole of a house, and that proved to me that Resident Evil 7 was doing something right. Throwing you in a gross, unfamiliar place and barely giving you enough supplies to survive was a feeling I've been wanting the series to give me for all these years. The way in which it took those old feelings and adapted them to modern horror staples was the apology that fans needed and made me optimistic about the future of Resident Evil. Cuphead upholds my annual tradition of throwing one token Xbox game on my year-end list. Like those Xbox entries of years past, Cuphead absolutely earns its spot through its brutal but beautiful boss fights and incredible overall presentation. Slowly learning patterns in order to adapt and overcome the cavalcade of bizarre bosses was satisfying all the way up until the fight with Satan himself. Plenty of games reward your eyes and ears, and Cuphead does that too, but it also rewarded my patience in a way that no other game on this list could match.
The house was exactly like I remembered it.
Narrative-heavy walking simulators usually contain just that, a ton of walking. But What Remains of Edith Finch is different, and that makes it such an incredible experience. Yes, you move at the speed faster than a crawl and slower than a run, in an area where you piece together a story, but Finch's ability to give you things to do puts it far ahead of others in the genre. Playing through each family member's tragic yet beautiful backstory makes more of an impact when you're actually playing it and not just wandering through it. It intuitively utilized the video game medium to tell an unforgettable tale that will stick with me for years to come.
And the rest I think you know.
Assassin's Creed Origins felt like an apology meant for everyone who's ever loved an Assassin's Creed game. Origins shed the constrictive shackles that had bound the series for a decade and set itself free in the beautiful, diverse world of ancient Egypt. Egypt felt like a real lived-in place and wasn't a hassle to navigate, thanks to the new and improved traversal, combat, and stealth systems. Origins ironically pulled Assassin's Creed into modern times and could be the new beginning the series needed, or it could be just another short-lived positive streak. Let's hope it's the former. Horizon Zero Dawn had me at robot dinosaurs, but continued to hold me because of, well, a ton of other things. It closely adhered to many Far Cry-like open-world staples, but its lore and combat mechanics gave it an edge over its competition. Encounters required finesse and strategy, and deducing where and how to attack each new machine felt a lot more involving than the typical open-world combat loop in other games in the genre. And while its narrative only did just enough to string me along, it crafted a unique universe that I wanted to see more of. Horizon Zero Dawn was a fantastic game, and it gives me hope that more developers will see this as evidence that talented teams don't need to be married to one specific genre or franchise to make something great. I didn't think I'd be talking about Uncharted: The Lost Legacy here, mainly because I don't like to put DLC on my Game of the Year lists. But The Lost Legacy was a full game worthy of standing up to, and sometimes surpassing, Nathan Drake's mainlined adventures. It brilliantly worked with its shorter runtime by keeping its small story tightly paced and focused. Chloe took that focus and, like I said on my video essay on the topic, grew convincingly in the span of 8 or so hours, giving her the closing chapter she desperately deserved. Although it's a tighter narrative experience, some levels opened up and broke away from the traditional linear mold, something I hope Naughty Dog continues to do in the future. The Lost Legacy liberally lifts a lot of Uncharted 4's strengths and builds off that foundation to create not only one of the best games of the series, but also one of the best games of the year. Nazis can get f***ed, and Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus lets you express that sentiment in the most poetic ways. From hatchets to dual-wielding machine guns, there are plenty of methods to turn the SS into exploding chunks of red goo, and each is just as entertaining and cathartic as the last. The quick gunplay may be punishing at first, but the way it pushes you to be more aggressive only brings out the best of its combat in a way reminiscent of last year's phenomenal Doom. Wolfenstein also sucks you in through its brilliantly told story that masterfully manages a whole variety of tones and emotions as it guides you on a ride wilder than you can possibly imagine. The New Colossus is filled with outstanding moments and memorable combat encounters from its intro to its end credits, and is undoubtedly one of the greatest first-person shooters of all time.
Only criminals need to fear me. Shazam and Green Arrow were criminals. Casualties of war. Begin.
Like Mortal Kombat XL before it, Injustice 2 kept finding ways to consistently pull me back in since its release in May. While its multiverse challenges and DLC characters kept the game fresh, those hooks only worked because of the game's solid fundamentals. Injustice 2 sped up the tempo of the matches and felt smoother, and because of these changes, I finally felt compelled to learn its intricacies and get better. The single-player campaign benefited from these gameplay enhancements, but was mainly carried by its spectacular pacing and engaging story. NetherRealm Studios has outdone themselves this time, and, like I detailed in my video on the subject, they continue to push the genre forward in ways that far surpass every other fighting game developer. Through its expansive gear system, fantastic campaign, and fluid fighting mechanics, Injustice 2 is my game of the year and is something I see myself playing well into 2018 and beyond. Thanks for watching.
Here's your line in the sand.
Here's where I fly over it.